We have the pleasure of welcoming Tim Sackett today to our interview series Leaders Hum. I'm Aishwarya Jain from the peopleHum team. Before we begin, just a quick intro of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work with AI and automation technologies. We run the peopleHum blog and video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Tim Sackett. He's a recruiting executive and the president of HRU Technical Resources. He's fondly known as the world's foremost expert in workplace hugging and has been listed as one of the most influential HR experts by a multitude of global organizations. Known for his unique views and added wit to all of his keynote addresses and blogs, he brings with him a great experience of 20 years in human resources. Welcome, Tim. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you for having me. I enjoy being here.
Our pleasure. So, Tim, tell us a little about your journey that brought you to this amazing place here. What is your inspiration to move forward in life?
Well, it's interesting. I actually got involved in talent acquisition originally because my mother started a recruiting company back in like 1980. And she was a single mom. And so when I was young, my sister and I would, at night, she would call, engineers and IT professionals and, database administrators and all these people and be having these conversations on the phone. And as a young child, like I would just sit in my mom's bed and, with the TV volume off and she would listen to conversations. So I always tell people I was kind of born into talent acquisition. And then, I think through the talent acquisition piece really took, got involved with HR, went and got my master's in HR and decided to try that out for a while as well. And then, through circumstances, my mother decided to leave the company, and then I came and took that over about 10 years ago. And so I've been doing that ever since. So, my mom was probably the biggest inspiration for me to get started in the field. And then have had so many like just mentors and great minds throughout, the last 20 years that I've been able to work with that has kept me energized. Like the field is constantly changing. Obviously we're going through a gigantic change right now across the world with the pandemic. And I think that everybody's relying on HR professionals and leaders to come forward and say, hey, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle our people? How are we keeping, all these things together? And so to me, that's probably the biggest inspiration.
Wow, that's wonderful. And that's very nice of you to say that your mother is your inspiration. And, can you tell us a little about this workplace hugging movement? It's very interesting. What brought you to be the foremost expert on workplace hugging?
Yeah, I think it would be. Now it might get us arrested and put in jail, right? We can't go around hugging people for fear of giving them the COVID. But so it started years ago. I'm just a hugger, right? So I'm a person that if I see somebody personally, professionally, if I know them, if I feel like I have that kind of relationship, instead of shaking their hand, I'm probably gonna, give them a hug. And so a couple of things happened, right? One was I wrote a blog post about it and it went viral. Jeff Weiner, who's the CEO of LinkedIn, shared it with his network on LinkedIn. And this is before like everybody could share content on LinkedIn. And so it went crazy viral. Probably like 1 million people within a couple of days read it. I was getting calls to come on interviews for like radio stations and all this stuff. And so it was kind of that like little quick 15 minutes of fame of, people wanting to talk about like the rules of hugging at work. And then the Me Too movement happened. And then I just became like this middle-aged white guy on stage talking about hugging at work. And I'm okay, that's probably not the best thing. And then coronavirus happened and now I could kill somebody if I hug them. So it's like, I don't know how big it's going to be, but I do hear nonstop people have been sending me messages during the lockdown saying they can't wait to see me to give me a hug when they see me, like when we get released. There's gonna be a lot of pent up hugging that people want to take place when we're all done with this.
Absolutely. I think once we're out of the pandemic, everyone's gonna rush to, hug each other. That would
Yeah,
be
for sure.
And, we heard a keynote address regarding your views about failing as the stepping stone to success. So can you tell us what shaped your thinking to believe that failure is not something that it leads us to success?
Yeah, I kind of got frustrated with what I call hustle porn, right? So in the US market especially, there's a lot of people that believe we should be, you constantly hustle, right? Like we can't, and again, I'm not a disbeliever of that concept of, I believe we should really be, pushing each other to get better and all that good stuff. Cause I always set high expectations for myself, but with that came this belief that we need to fail more. You need to fail faster. And there was always motivational speakers coming out talking about failure is the way to success. And I'm kind of a logical, data-driven leader, right? Person in my mind. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, if I keep failing, automatically it doesn't lead to success. Now, the concept I think is people are like, well, if you learn from every failure, eventually, potentially, you're going to be teaching yourself, right, the best way to do it. But I also have 3 sons who are very athletic. I have a wife who was a college athlete and very athletic. And what I saw there was completely different. The more you fail in athletic endeavors, your mind starts to really make you believe that you're going to fail the next time as well, right? You don't, if you're like playing a baseball and you strike out 100 times in a row, when you go up to bat for the 101st time, your brain isn't thinking, oh, great, this is the time I'm going to be successful. Your brain is like, I'm going to fail again. And so what you see in that endeavor then is failure actually leads to more failure. And it's not that you're not trying harder. It's not that you're not learning from it. It's that psychology wise, you're just beat down to believe that this is a problem, right? So, so what I find is that if you can find ways to be successful little by little. So in that, kind of example, instead of trying to hit 100-mile-an-hour fastball, now I'm going to just toss you a ball, or I'm going to put a ball on a tee and have you hit it and learn how to really get your swing down. And then I'm going to toss you a ball, and then I'm going to, go behind a screen and just toss it a little faster. And little by little, you're having success and success and success. Now, when you go up to bat, you're thinking, oh, I have this, right? Because you're building up that psychological belief that the motivation that you're going to be successful. And I think, so I'm not a believer that failure leads to success. I'm a believer in that we have to help our employees, we have to help our people find little bits of success so that they have the confidence and the motivation to move forward to that next piece, that they're going to truly believe, hey, I can be successful at this. When you take a look at people who are really successful, one of the things that they kind of will always go back to is that they just have this confidence that they knew they could do it. Well, if you fail, you don't know you can do it. You think you're going to fail again, versus like build little by little, and then, then having that confidence that you're going to be successful. The hard part for leaders then is to really find out, how do I help my people become successful, right? If you, instead of throwing a giant project on them that you think, this is going to be really difficult, I don't know if they're prepared, maybe you start to, give them pieces of that project that they can be successful. And then all of a sudden they'll turn and look backwards and go, oh gosh, I just completed that. I just did everything. I was successful because you gave them things they can be successful at.
Right. So, at this point in time, how do you think leaders can actually make their team successful? Because it's such a unique environment and everyone's remote, and, leaders and managers are not used to this. So how do you think they can make their team successful?
I think, we tend to want to have like really high empathy right now, and we need that as leaders, understanding that people are being put in a situation they might not be super comfortable with. I think all of us, there's a big part of the population that thought they wanted to work remote. Like, oh, I could just, if I worked at home, I could be so much more productive. And then they get home and they find out, oh gosh, there's a lot of influences coming in that really hurts them from being productive. So I think part of the best leaders that I see right now are really holding their teams accountable to certain things, and they're checking in often. They're making sure that people are doing things. They're not just saying, oh, well, just go home and, do the same thing you've been doing and that's going to work out well. They know that, hey, people are probably going to have a harder time being more productive, or being as productive. And so I want to make sure to go out there and set, really great measures, and then check in to find out, hey, what, if you're not meeting those measures, then how can I help, and what can I do to help you be more successful? Because that's the world we live in. We're not going to shut down everything for months on end and just think, oh, it's going to be fine. There's still a lot of businesses out there that have to perform. We do a lot of, defense work within the US. All of those employees that we have on those projects are still going to work every single day. They still have to produce things. And so it's up to us as leaders to make sure that they're being as productive as they can. So it's not a time to just go, oh, it's going to be okay, we're all being non-productive, and just keep watching Netflix. We have to really hold people accountable now more than ever.
Absolutely. And, what do you think about recruitment in these times? Because again, it's a very difficult time. There are some companies who are still hiring. So what is your advice to such people?
It's difficult because I think there's so many, there are some companies, very specialized companies, that are still hiring. I think there's so many companies that are not. And I see so many recruiters and recruiting organizations within corporations that they're laying those people off or getting rid of those people. And I think what I see is the best companies, even they're in a position where most of their workers aren't necessarily working full time, they're using this time in recruiting and talent acquisition to actually better themselves. They're saying, hey, what's that talent out there that we never could get, that now might not have a job or might be underemployed or whatever that might be, and let's go after some of those people and get them lined up to be on our team now. Also, if I'm, we had so many of us were struggling a month ago to find, talent. And so we probably held on to some talent that wasn't very good just because, like, hey, I know Timmy's not really that good at this, but it's better than nobody. So we're going to hold on to Timmy. Well, maybe now Timmy has to go away, but we can upgrade Timmy's position and find someone much better. The best organizations coming out of the pandemic will better their talent. The worst organizations will basically just try to cut costs and get rid of all the talent that they have. And I know from a business standpoint, some of us have to do that to survive. But I think even if you only keep a tenth of your talent, 25% of your talent, whatever that is, make sure that the people that you're keeping or that you're have in those positions are the best possible talent in the marketplace that you have. Those organizations are going to be better at the end.
Right. There's a lot of behavioral testing and assessment tools out there, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important for candidate selection. And can you tell us some tips and techniques that can be used for behavioral assessment?
Yeah, I think when we talk about the future of the talent acquisition tech stack and where this is going to come when we get outside of the pandemic or recession or whatever happens worldwide, I think we believe we're going to have more candidates applying to our jobs. If that's the case, then we have to embrace, assessment technology. And so that's going to be a huge part of the tech stack coming out of the pandemic, because I think what we learned from 2008, 2009, like the Great Recession, was that what we tried to do within the tech stack was just put filter, 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 filter. So instead of having 10,000 people apply to the job, by the end of the process, I only had 100 that made it that way, right? And what we thought was, oh, that's giving us a higher quality of candidate. It wasn't. What it gave us was somebody who survived all the hoops that we made them jump through, right? So it was survivors at the end. It wasn't the best talent. So what I think the modern recruiting tech stack is going to try to do is just say, hey, I want all 10,000 to come in, have a great candidate experience, make it very quick and easy for them to apply. And so I need an assessment that's not going to be cumbersome, that's not going to be time consuming, but that's really going to give me a high degree of a higher quality of candidate. So when I take a look at that, for me, when we take a look at the two highest variables of quality of hire, it's going to be, one is flat out cognitive ability, agility to learn those things, or the other one is an actual job work sample, right? Can I see them doing the job, and if I can, and do they do it well? I mean, those are the two highest correlated kind of pieces that we need. Behavioral assessments have definitely evolved over the last decade for sure. I think when we take a look at a typical behavioral assessment and we take a look at the personality profiles and things like that, I don't know if I'm a huge believer of some of that stuff. And there are people like, oh, we've used these for 60 years. I'm like, yeah, we've used it for 60 years. And for 60 years, it's been crap, right? It hasn't been good. And so it's like, it hasn't given us a better quality of candidate. So for me, I'm looking at flat out cognitive ability, because smart people, people that can actually learn quickly, can take in a lot of information and process quickly, are ones that we know can come up to speed really quickly for us in any environment, whether you're hiring for IT or you're hiring for a bus driver. Cognitive ability, and that doesn't mean educational ability, that just means cognitive ability is really good. And then the really hard part of that is trying to develop a really fundamental, fast work sample. For some occupations, you just won't be able to. For others, we will. There's some tech out there that people can do work samples on that I think is really great to get a higher quality of candidate. But I think I'm with you. I think coming out of this, we definitely need a higher usage of assessments across the board, because we want to make sure every candidate potentially has access to the job, and that we're getting the highest quality of candidate out of all of those, not making people jump through hoops.
Right. And even for candidate engagement, which is a very big parameter in this entire recruiting process, do you think chatbots can really help in candidate engagement?
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. And I'm a big fan. I mean, I think my friend Madeline Lorano at Aptitude Research has showed that, having a chatbot on your career site, I think will get you, like double the amount of applicants per posting that you have. Now, again, if you're old school thinking, going, well, I don't need more applicants, we have too many applicants, that's not, no, you want as many applicants as you can. What you want is technology that will give you the top applicants of those, and so it's matching technology, assessment technology. But I think the chatbot thing is definitely something that we have to be looking at. And I love the combination or the hybrid chat where, so let's say I had a really, really difficult to find position, right? We're doing some really difficult to find like IT positions, right? And so even though we have high unemployment, maybe I'm still not getting very many candidates to apply to this job. So I want a chatbot that's, probably AI driven. At the same time, as soon as I have somebody that I think is interested, that I think is good, I want to have a real human come into the loop, right? So it's a pass off of where does the chatbot stop and where do I then introduce a real human, so that I can make sure I don't lose that candidate. And because, chatbots have been there. I mean, they've really increased, over the last couple of years in terms of their ability, but it's still limited versus you and I having a conversation with a person. If I have a position that's low skill, no skill, and I have hundreds of thousands of people applying, maybe the chatbot screening technology can basically run all of that for me, and I'm going to get good enough, for my hire. But when it comes to really low candidate positions, I need that hybrid model. I want to start with a chatbot, but I want to also then loop in a real human eventually. In today's world, no matter what your age, I think we're all comfortable at this point using the chatbot technology. No one goes, oh, well, I'm not going to ask a chatbot something. It's like, just come on, get over yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about, software that's used to engage employees, HCM software? Do you think it's actually going to improve the experience of employees?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's difficult because I go back to the Great Recession, and what we came out of that was, when you have high unemployment, we tend not to really think about the employee experience, because you're just like, hey, I don't have to, because there's 100 people waiting to take your job if you screw up or if you're not happy. Like, and again, that's kind of an old school model of thinking. I think the last decade has shown us that if you want to be competitive, you want the best talent, you have to have a combination of, we still want to offer a great employee experience, which, I mean, at that point, we need to go out and say, what can we do to keep a good engagement? I'm not a big fan of, we constantly have to raise engagement, because I think it's a never ending story that eventually you get to a point where you're going, okay, we're at 98% engagement. What else do we have to do to get people engaged? that's not, what I want to, I don't want to get into that game. What I want to do is to say, hey, what's a baseline of engagement? Do we feel like our culture is really good? And if it is, then I'm fine with kind of where we're at. But you still have to measure that and understand where that's at, or understand like, hey, do I have certain groups or certain managers or leaders who are bringing engagement down in their areas? And then how do we assist them and help them? To me, I think one of the biggest things I've seen is when you take a look at like Slack and Microsoft Teams and some of these communication vehicles that are allowing teams to interact with each other, especially remotely, but also even within organizations. We started Microsoft Teams and using that, and my team engages with each other now. Before it was, hey, when we came to the office, then they would be engaged, right? Because they're all kind of together and they see each other and they stop by and have a cup of coffee. Now I see on Microsoft Teams where my people are engaging with each other, not just during the day, but at night and on the weekends, and they're sharing stuff. And like the engagement level from a communication side has really gone through the roof. So I love those kinds of technologies as well that are allowing our people to engage when they want to engage, not just between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday.
Right. And do you think that you can measure this engagement? Now, I know that we have a lot of engagement surveys that we send out, but do you think that's a real indicator of what's happening in the organization?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think good leaders and I think smart employees know how to kind of game, some of the engagement stuff. And I also think that sometimes we get held hostage by people who just are negative overall. Yeah, I mean, no matter what we do with our assessment technology and how good we are interviewing, there's going to be some people that kind of slip through the interview cracks, and then you find out that God, they're just kind of a negative personality overall. Nothing you can do is going to make them happy. I tend to like tell people it's not my job as a leader to make you happy. I'm never going to make you happy. Either you're a happy person or you're not a happy person, but there's nothing I'm going to do that's going to make you happy. And so I tell leaders all the time, if you want a happy culture, you want happy employees, then hire happy people. That's the easiest way to get happy. Nothing you're going to do. You could double their salary, and within 3 months, they're going to be unhappy again. Like that's just the way it goes,
Right, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So, for my last question, Tim, if you have any other important sound bites that you'd like to provide our audience.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us right now are kind of on our back, on our heels a little bit, so to speak, of what this coronavirus and what the pandemic has done to us, and we're not sure how to act. I think the one thing I can do that I can control in my environment is, one, ensure that the employees I have, that I'm being transparent and having real conversations with. At the same time, is that I'm still a huge believer that we have to increase our talent in any way we can. So if you went from 1,000 employees to 500 employees, you better make sure those 500 are the best freaking 500 employees you have in the world working for you. And that's what you can do right now. That's what you can control. I can't control if the government's going to say, hey, you can go back to work next week or next month or next year. I have no control over that, so I can't focus on that. I can focus on my own talent, my own people, and making sure that I'm either getting the best talent or I'm making the talent have better already through an HR, through learning, through all of that stuff that we do. I think it's so important right now to control what you can control and not worry. And you can worry about everything, but try not to worry about the rest.
Yeah, I think that's an important message, to try to keep sanity and positivity at this point in time. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Well, it
You're
was
welcome.
a pleasure talking to you, Tim. I really appreciate your time with us and you sharing your views. I think our audience has learned a lot, and me personally too. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And again, I write every day at my blog, timsackett.com. So if people want to hear more or catch up, go out to the blog.
Absolutely. Take care, Tim. Bye-bye.
Thank you.